Hi, and welcome back to Marketplace Tech's limited series, Decoding Democracy, where we're talking about misinformation and disinformation in the 2024 election. I'm Lily Jamali, and I'm joined again by Marketplace senior correspondent Kimberly Adams. Kimberly, great to have you back.
Thanks, Lily. Good to be here.
So today we're going to be digging deeper into video deepfakes, and we're going to ask something of a provocative question, and that is, can deepfakes be used for a larger public good? Because this is a claim that we're seeing more and more lately, and as we will see, it can be something of a slippery slope. So Kimberly, before we dive in, let's do a quick recap of the types of deepfakes that are out there.
Right. I mean, as the technology changes, the types of methods you can use to create a deepfake are getting more and more advanced every day. But if you kind of look at what's already out there, you see it sort of fall into two buckets. One is where you see an existing video of an existing person that's just kind of out there with something else superimposed on it. There's a very famous one with Jennifer Lawrence, and there's another actor who's a guy. His face is on her, and it's supposed to be funny.
Another actor, Steve Buscemi. Come on, Kimberly.
Steve Buscemi, right. And then if you've seen any of those weird ads on social media with Selena Gomez and others hawking, dishware, that's probably not them. And so their face gets superimposed onto things and maybe chopped up in different ways. But there's more harmful examples of that too. It's not just funny, or it's not just, somebody trying to be scammy with an ad. Classically, deepfake porn, where someone takes existing porn video with professional actors or actresses and then superimposes the face of either a public figure or maybe even a private citizen who's being targeted. And that can be incredibly damaging and super harmful and very difficult, for what it's worth, to get off the internet.
Yeah, so true. And you talked about how there are two buckets. So what's the other one that we're talking about?
Right. So the second one really relies on some of this newer generative AI technology that we're seeing, where maybe you feed audio and video of a person into some of this software and create something completely new. And maybe you'll use, an existing background or an existing video as a starting point. But a lot of this stuff is just simply generated from scratch using this technology. And that's what we're really seeing a lot crop up in terms of politics, and where a lot of experts say the danger is.
Mm-hmm. So let's get back to the question that we posed at the top about intent, because disinformation is about misleading with intent. What happens when deepfakes are made not to harm, but to entertain, or even ostensibly for a larger good? And that's something that I want to focus on for a little bit. So one example that came up about a month ago was the Joe Biden audio deepfake. This happened during the run-up to the New Hampshire primary at the start of the year. We had this political consultant who is aligned with Democrats, Steve Kramer. He admitted to commissioning this audio deepfake that went out to people by phone, a parody of Joe Biden saying, basically, don't go to the polls. And then he said that this was a way of getting some kind of message out, which was kind of baffling.
Right, because he said it was a parody, but it was not at all clear when people received that phone call that it was a parody, if it really even was, or if that's something he's sort of saying after the fact. I'm sure the courts will eventually decide. Yeah. But another example of that is there's an example on X right now of someone who has created this deep fake of Kamala Harris sort of mumbling and stumbling through a speech. And even if that person were to argue that that's just supposed to be a parody, it's just supposed to be satire. Mm-hmm. If you look at the comments, most of the people who saw that video seem to think it's a real image and a real video of Harris speaking and emblematic of her having some sort of cognitive issues. And this is the thing. Someone can always claim, oh, this was just supposed to be funny. But when those videos get taken out of context, or when they're actively pushed out in a way that's ambiguous, that's where some of this disinformation really gets going.
Yeah, another example that's fairly recent comes out of the state of Arizona. There's an online newsletter called the Arizona Agenda that's run by local journalists in the state. And they generated their own deepfake of Carrie Lake, the Republican and ally of President Trump, who is currently running for the Senate seat in Arizona. It was also made as a warning from what they say. Let's take a quick look at that.
Hi, I'm Carrie Lake. Subscribe to the Arizona Agenda for hard-hitting, real news and a preview of the terrifying artificial intelligence coming your way in the next election. Like this video, which is an AI deepfake the Arizona Agenda made to show you just how good this technology is getting.
This is important because, Carrie Lake, she tried to deny the election results in 2020. She also challenged her loss when she was running for governor back in 2022, and has sent, it sounds like, a cease and desist letter to the Arizona Agenda for this.
Right. And this is one of those examples that you can kind of go either way with it. On the one hand, they took someone's name, image, likeness without their permission, used it, in a context that person normally would not have used it. But they're arguing it is for the greater good, to demonstrate how dangerous this technology can be, how difficult it is to spot a video deep fake, and, at the same time to sort of try to drive subscriptions. But when it comes to these things, it's really hard to see what can be considered good and what can be considered bad, and who gets to make those decisions and how that argument will land, depending on how much legal trouble you get into.
Yeah, I got to say, it makes me uneasy when there's a sense of I'm being tricked, even if it's for the good of the public, to educate me. I think unless there's a clear message specifically about AI, and is immediately clear as I'm watching, I'm going to go with no. Maybe better not to add to the noise that's already out there. And I will say that on our show, on Marketplace Tech, if we play something that is manipulated or AI generated, we're very clear about that from the beginning. We don't just put it out there and trick people and then say, oh, guess what, guys, that wasn't real. I think that kind of forthrightness is really important right now, because there's just so much garbage out there and it's hard to tell the difference.
At the same time, I do think that there's a possibility where you could be using AI for good. I'm thinking of examples of public figures or election officials or people trying to increase voter participation by generating content in different languages, or by sharing voter information. Or if you're a candidate and you want your voice to be used to generate messages to save you some time. Let's just say you're Joe Biden and you don't want to record an advertisement for your campaign for every single different county in Missouri. You could give your campaign permission to do that and then save yourself some time. Is that a good or a bad use? Don't really know.
Up for debate. Well, we're gonna actually get a little bit of expert help on this now, because we posed this question of intent to Joshua Glick. He's a visiting professor of film. He specializes in media literacy. We asked him to weigh in on this question. Here's what he had to say.
I think things like satire and parody and these kinds of works of media and works of art really, should be protected. However, just because someone says that they are trying to be funny or to make a joke, or just because someone says that they're creating a work of media or a deepfake, right, to call greater, attention to the issue, doesn't mean that it doesn't have grave and harmful consequences, right? And especially as they aren't making this work of media in a vacuum, right? They're making it and it's being disseminated through various means, whether that's online, whether that's through an older telecommunications structure. How that work can be appropriated, manipulated, redistributed in some way is also, important to take into account.
Yeah, here I think it's helpful to really lean into the difference between disinformation and misinformation. Disinformation has that intent. The misinformation piece is when it gets disseminated, oftentimes by people that don't know that there was something malicious or otherwise wrong about what they're sharing out.
Right. If someone creates something that they think is funny, and then someone who has ill intent takes that clip and pushes it out as a real thing, that's where it gets from sort of playing around with AI to actual disinformation.
Yeah, there's also a really interesting example in the last week. You may have seen this, Kimberly. Lara Trump, the daughter-in-law of former President Trump, who is now the co-chair of the Republican National Committee. She released a music single this past week, and the Democrat, and it's, I'm not going to force folks to listen to it, but the Democrats responded with a similar sounding trolly song called Parties Fallen Down. And we're not going to play that for you either. But The Verge writes, doing this now feels like opening a door that will be hard to close. This is in an article called The DNC Made a Weird AI-Generated Parody of Lara Trump. Everybody should check out that piece, and we'll post it on marketplacetech.org. But here you can definitely see that slippery slope argument and how something that's supposed to be funny can be wielded as an excuse to do something that's more malicious down the road.
Right. Intent does not mitigate impact.
Those are words to live by, Kimberly. Well, our producer, Daniel Shin, has lined up 3 deepfake videos for us to see if we can actually spot some telltale signs. And we're going to go over some tips. But let's go ahead and start. This first one is a video deepfake of Elizabeth Warren, the senator from the great state of Massachusetts. She appears to be on MSNBC. And we're going to take a listen and a watch right now.
Will take place after a divisive period of political unrest, and allowing Republicans to vote could threaten the integrity of the election and the safety of the electorate. Since Republicans have a history of promoting policies that undermine the public's trust in the government, allowing them to vote could lead to an outcome that does not accurately reflect the will of the people.
And this, Kimberly, is a video that made the rounds on Twitter/X back in February of 2023. What struck you about this video?
Well, I'm really grateful to the MIT Media Lab because they have this nice list of tips of things you can look out for when you're seeing a video and you suspect it might be a deep fake. And so I was doing the things that they suggest, paying attention to the face, looking at whether or not, her forehead isn't moving. Her mouth is moving in a very weird way.
Yeah.
The shadows are not necessarily doing what they're supposed to do. Her hair, there's this little wisp on the side that doesn't move a tiny bit through the whole video. And so some of the other suggestions they have are that, if lip movements are really the telltale signs, the deep fakes rely on lip syncing, paying attention again to the cheeks and the forehead. Those are supposed to move. Like, look, I'm moving. I've got wrinkles in my forehead. That's what normal people do. Her forehead doesn't move in this video.
And then also let's focus on substance too, because one of the things she says there is that allowing Republicans to vote could threaten the integrity of the election. And if you've ever heard Elizabeth Warren speak, that just doesn't sound like something that she would say.
Right. She tends to advocate for increased voter access, not less voter access, even for her opponents. The other big telltale sign is that this is a video of someone's TV screen as opposed to an actual clip, which adds an additional level of suspicion for me. I think we have another one with Joe Biden, right?
Yes, let's play that one.
We must be crystal clear. We stand with Ukraine. We stand with Ukraine. We will ensure that Ukraine has what it needs to free Kiev from Russian occupation, which has lasted for 10 years.
Now, this one comes from a X account that has a history of spreading disinformation. And once again, look at the mouth movements, very stiff. His cheeks aren't moving. His forehead is not wrinkling or moving at all. This has some telltale signs of a deep fake.
Right. And Hani Farid at Berkeley did analysis on this video as well. It led his team to conclude this was an AI-generated deepfake using AI-generated audio and AI to manipulate the lips, which you so aptly noted did not look quite right. All right. And the last one, this is from Ron DeSantis, a fake version of Ron DeSantis. Let's go ahead and look at that one. This one, I think, was created by YouTube creator C3P Meme.
Hi, I'm Ron DeSantis, governor of the great state of Florida. After the last week's events, including my poor performance at the debate, as well as President Trump rejoining X, I've realized I need to drop out of this race immediately. I was told I could be president by some very powerful people, and I took some very bad advice. I did some very bad things that I'm not proud of at all. I never should have entered this race, which really isn't a race at all, except to the bottom.
Wow. That one substantively has deepfake written all over it.
Also,
almost
it comes from an
comical.
account known for creating deepfakes of political figures.
Mhm.
This time I was looking, there's actually better facial movement on this one. There's
Mhm.
some fake lines on the forehead. But if you look at the shirt, it's got some weird bubbles on
Mm.
his shirt that are not natural. But yes, his lips are still moving in a very stiff way, in a not natural way. And so, again, this is just another example as you're seeing these videos online, before you share it, before you accept it as gospel, take a very close look for some of these telltale signs that it may be a deep fake.
Yeah. And, just take a moment, as Kimberly said, but also if it sounds like if you are surprised by the things that are being said, definitely think twice before clicking share. All right. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for joining me once again for this episode of Decoding Democracy. Really glad to have you back.
Glad to be here. Hopefully, we can all get smarter about this online.
100%. New episodes drop bi-weekly on Tuesdays. If you have any stories you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you. So leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe. Daniel Shin produced this episode, and I'm Lily Jamali.